Greetings of peace once again, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Faith and Society. And I'm your host, Bassem Shaban, Director of the Peace Institute. And once again, we have our distinguished guests, Pastor Stanley Murray, as well as Imam Muhammad Musri, representing the Muslim community and the Christian community with Pastor Stanley. So today's talk is really about a very important topic that many societies deal with all over the world, and it's been pretty much an epidemic for generations. And it's important that we discuss it as we've been doing with all of these issues from a faith perspective, which is the issue of poverty in our society. So we're going to talk about it and also probably how it's been impacting the world, especially because of the COVID pandemic and how much exposure poverty has been taking related to the societal global impact. So as we always do, Pastor, if you want to start us off with your opening remarks.
Hey, man, I'm just excited to be here once again, and thank you for having me. This is really a touch subject for me to my heart as we begin to look at what's happening around the world with the shortages of just about everything from cars to clothing to bottled water on the shelves. I don't know what more we could have to not gain the attention of those of us who, in our respective faiths, say we are believers. This is a praying time right now, but it's also a time of action. What are we doing to educate those about the things that are going on with our people who are without? As you drive around every day, you see someone standing at a corner or sitting in a place not having. As you go to some of the areas of town, you can see poverty that has now just become normal place. People walk by it as if it doesn't exist. And if you really get into knowing about poverty, you would find that we all are one or two decisions away from winding up in a similar situation. So my heart goes out to those who have the ability to stretch themselves into a place of servitude, to help those that are in need, to be there for those that are in need, and willing to give. And I want to tell us to quit being so wasteful. We waste a lot of things, not just food, but just products and items and things that we could pass down or transfer to someone else. We're just literally throwing them away. I met a homeless guy one time, though, and he did tell me this. He says, you can find anything to eat on a Saturday in Orlando. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, somebody's hosting something somewhere downtown, somewhere around town for the general public that if you're homeless, you can get into the mix and get it. He says, what I'm finding is the consistency of those. They come by at certain times of the year. He said, but finding programs that continually help educate and get people to the next level are now few and far between. And those who are getting grants and things of that nature, are they putting it back to the streets where they rightfully belong? I know it's a whole nother topic, but I just want to leave that with, if God has given you the ability to serve, then there's no question about it. The poor is where you should start.
Very good. Thank you, sir. So Imam Musri?
Yeah, poverty is absolutely one of the worst problems across the world. Some entire nations are suffering from it, but right here in our country, we see that over 50 million live below the poverty line. And it's not because these folks choose to, it's because they're forced to. There are many, many reasons why they end up in that situation. As the pastor said, we are all one or two steps removed from falling in that trap. I have seen families who were doing well before the pandemic, all of a sudden they lose their home and or health insurance, and things pile up one after another very quickly. Most Americans don't have enough in savings to handle a crisis like the pandemic. The stimulus money helped a lot of families across the country, but now it's stopped and people are struggling to survive, especially people who are now several months behind on their rent. These folks have to, cut away from what they eat or other things in order just to pay the rent and keep a roof over their head. So we call on the government to hurry up and distribute the aid. There are billions of dollars in aid that Congress promised and passed almost a year ago, and yet only about 15 to 20% has been distributed so far. Now, religion always focused on this problem. All the prophets talked about it and proposed the good solutions for it. As the pastor said, it's always about those who have sharing with those who don't. There's enough. God has created enough resources to be sufficient for all of us, but some people waste and other people's suffer, and we have to fix this problem. We cannot as a society stay cohesive when we allow millions of our sisters and brothers to fall below the poverty line, and while some folks are really wasting a lot of resources. In Islam, we have the zakat system, which is a form of taxation, religious tax, but has very specific purpose. It is there are 8 categories of people: the poor, the needy, the orphans, the widows, the people who are in debt, the people who lost things, people who are traveling or refugees. So these categories, this religious tax, the zakat, is taken from the rich and given to the poor in each community. And when there is surplus in one community, it's taken to the neighboring community to help them out. To redistribute, it's a small percentage, 2.5%, but it is honestly sufficient to fix this problem. And it has done so multiple times throughout history. But our current tax system here in the United States is kind of lopsided. The people who work, the middle class, they are paying income tax, but the very rich, they are not paying their fair share. Because they're not really making income like we do, they don't end up paying money on that. They are able to craft the laws through Congress to favor and to shelter and to hide a lot of that wealth and let it escape and let it grow, billions upon billions upon billions, while the people who are doing all the work on the bottom, they end up paying most of the tax. So we need the legislatures to go back to the drawing board and realize, after half a century since Lyndon Johnson declared war on poverty, we are worse off than we were back in the 60s. And that's because the laws were made honestly by the rich for the rich, and it's not helping lift up millions of Americans out of poverty.
Pastor, can you share the Christian perspective from the Bible about the poor and the plight of the poor? You're muted, sir.
Thank you. The Bible tells us, even in the sight of the poor, he said, blessed are the poor. And so part of that blessing is God having placed us on this earth to help them. Because if we really begin to look into poverty, if someone cannot afford to buy their food, then they probably cannot buy their medication. So now you're moving into another realm of poverty where people are now mentally poor. They're not able to take medication that sustain their health. Those who have medication that helps them with their mindset are not able to take that. So that's a whole nother umbrella that's being spread out even further. Then you have people who can't afford to do that. Then they're not able to also do the normal functions, gas for their vehicles, or being able to catch a bus to get where they have to be. And so now the circulation starts and it begins to spread around the community. And whether people realize it or not, they may say, well, how does that affect me? I pay my bills. I have food in my house. Well, indirectly, we all become affected because it's just like any kind of disease, and we'll call it poverty in the sense of that, it spreads. And before you know it, things are becoming where we are now with the shortages. We have more jobs available than ever, and nobody's getting the jobs. Well, at the same time, people who have been in poverty, who have not had the ability to maintain, like I said, medications, childcare, operations that allow them to function as a would-be citizen, are not in position to do that. You're seeing now more violent issues going on in the cities and the counties. You're seeing more domestic violence than you ever saw before that is happening because that poverty level is hit in so many different areas. Even people who were in substantial middle-class jobs, upper-class jobs, who have lost those positions. And now the fallback is the church, the mosque, the synagogue, the temple. We're supposed to be the bright light that helps them see that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Well, that's easy when I'm still weeping at night and I don't see the morning and the morning's not coming. And how do I survive throughout the night for that morning of joy to come? And so we as Christian leaders, and as any leader of faith, it is our job to maintain people with those opportunities. If you have a feeding program, implement it. If you're able to get into the community and help wherever where you can, a small pantry of some sort within your ministry, utilize it. Those congregants that are able to bless the house of God with those particular items, bring them and then put them out. At our ministry, every Sunday, we have a table that sits out during church time. We profess it once at the beginning of the service. We don't bring it up anymore, but we let people know that it's free to take and they're able to take it. And so from there on, we're letting people know, come and take what you need. Don't take what you want, take what you need, because someone else needs something else. And so we're always looking at those kinds of avenues, and we're collaborating with our local government, collaborating with our local food distributors, Walmart. We got Thanksgiving coming up. It's a holiday that's celebrated, but if you think about it, it's a holiday that's really celebrated with mostly about what? Food. So what do we do for those people who are not going to be able to cook hot meals, who are not going to be able to have those things set up? And so now I'm asking for all places of worship, regardless of a religion, start brainstorming now. What can I do to be able to help someone during that critical time? Even if you're making plates and going to where the homeless people are, the homeless shelters are. Some people are sleeping under bridges. Some people are sleeping in wooded areas. You know where they are. We don't have to sit here and try to tell you where to go. Most places of worship already know where their poverty areas are, or they should know. And if they don't, forgive me for saying it, you should close your doors. Because your whole reason for being open was not just for those people who can come in and bring tithes and alms and offerings, but for those who cannot. And if you project your eyes toward those, then that helps those who do have learn how to give.
Very good.
Absolutely. The role of the places of worship to serve the poor, the downtrodden, to lift them up. This is their final, hope. And when government cannot deliver, when the state government and the federal government, they squabble over money. There's a lot of money, but how does it trickle down to those who really need it? Most often we see the churches in the trenches and the places of worship, the mosque, delivering the aid directly to the people. Throughout the pandemic for the past year and a half, we have had those food drives. We have served the hundreds and hundreds of people each week. But the problem is poverty is more than the food. These people, are losing the homes, the roof over their heads. Their kids are going to school, not prepared. As you correctly said, poverty is not just, the hunger, but then the medicine, then the school supplies, then, one thing leads to another. And you find these kids who are dropping out of school or not going to school altogether because they're poor. And it comes back to affect us. We will see higher crime rates, higher thefts, and property values go down and so on. So it's in the best interest of the rich, really, to give a small piece of their wealth back to their neighbors in order to lift all the boats up. And that's where the faith communities come in. We need to constantly remind the wealthy among us that this is a gift from God and a trust from God. God is channeling the help through them to the people around them. And it is not because they are so smart and so intelligent that they got all of this. It's because God is testing them to see if they're going to do the right thing with that wealth and share some of it with their family and neighbors and friends in order to help everyone up. And that stems from what we call grateful heart. If you have a heart to thank God, you thank him not just by saying, thank you, God, for giving me, $1 million, but you go out in action and deliver that help to those who need it. That's how you thank God. And we believe in Islam that whatever you give, you're going to get 10 times back, in various ways, in the health of your family, your children, your own health, in blessing God, blessing your business, your employment, your source of income, people respecting and loving you. And so we have to inspire the people and remind them that, there is a saying for the Prophet Muhammad. He said, the poor don't suffer except by the choices of the rich. So God gave us enough resources. Are the people on the top sharing with the people on the bottom? And that is the big question here.
Well, thank you very much for your wisdom. Unfortunately, that's the time we have. We will continue this conversation on many social issues in this new series that we're focusing on for many of the plights that we are facing in society, especially because of the pandemic and all of the exposure it has brought to many of the failures in our society. So thank you for your wisdom and for all of the service that you do in the community.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
viewers, thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you in a new episode coming soon. Take care and be at peace.
God bless you.